Hey, we are back.
We're back.
There it is. Episode 8. Huge episode, very controversial. This topic came to light probably again last year via a documentary called The Game Changers. And I know it's sort of we've had a few debates since then about what is better, meat versus plant. But it continues to be a topic that is controversial, and there's constantly new research, new studies coming out, benefits, pros and cons of each. So today we're going to look at
massive documentary when it came out last year. I mean,
know.
almost everybody watched it, and I've got a few friends that even turned vegetarian after it. So
really, so they were heavily influenced by the documentary.
Yeah, definitely.
The documentary has been there've been a few people that have sort of analysed it and broken it down and proved a few things correct and a few things may possibly incorrect. But today we're going to look at the pros and cons of meat and plant-based sources of protein. We're going to look at which one's probably best for health, which one's best for sport performance, and probably provide a few examples of the best types of protein, both plant sources and meat sources.
Yeah. I've got my, Dennis Rodman jersey on today.
What, was he a vegan, was he?
I don't know, but he looks like...
he looks like a vegan?
No, well, there's a lot of athletes out there that credit their success to plant-based diets. I don't know if Dennis Rodman is, but I've been watching the Last Dance, so...
Yeah, what a documentary. Awesome documentary.
Yeah, so good. So I guess before we get into the topic, what do you eat? Where do you stand on plant-based?
Well, before everyone hates me, I'm definitely meat-based. But I'm not against vegetarians, vegans, because I'm married to one.
Yeah.
So I'd get killed if I said I was against it. But I can definitely see. I know it's sort of looking at two different people living under the one roof and different body types and different whatever. But I can definitely see sort of the pros and cons of both. So I'm not on the fence, but I'm on the fence.
Right.
But I think this debate has evolved over time. It almost started like what's best for nutrition and what's best for health and what's best for sport performance. But then it's really become a debate over industry versus industry.
Yeah.
Like the ethics of both, like factory farming or agricultural practices, use of pesticides or having animals cooped up in a shed with no real life. So has either industry got it right?
Well, there's a lot of bigger questions beyond what is the best food for performance. There's a whole other element to this discussion. What fits your values, what fits your morals, your lifestyle, your take on animal suffering, your views towards the planet, and all these kind of things influence people's dietary choices.
And everyone has a different reason. Like if you are a plant-based person or athlete, there's a reason why you are plant-based. It might be because of digestion. It might be because of health. It might be those ethical reasons behind some of the practices in the meat industry. So there's a variety of reasons. I would say majority are probably make their decision based on ethics. Yep. Because if they were to purely make their decision based on nutrition and performance, it may not be as equal as what they think.
And, there's so much evidence out there. It's very hard to draw a conclusion either way on what is best. Best is relative. And, if you're taking a holistic picture of health, there's more than just what you put it into your mouth. It's the whole story, how you feel, how it makes you feel. And that can influence your psychology, your well-being.
It can even have a placebo effect.
Exactly. So,
I mean, we've seen it both ways, where a person might be a meat eater up to a certain point in their life and then make a decision, hey, I want to be a vegan, vegetarian. And then all of a sudden they feel a hell of a lot healthier. They're bursting with energy. They feel great. Is it really the effects of food? Is it a placebo effect? So we don't really truly understand which is better. And I think it highlights how little we actually do know about nutrition for humans.
Yeah, and maybe we can touch on that a bit later on why we actually know so little. But these different types of studies that prove different things and show different things. And why we'll never know what's the best.
Maybe not in our lifetimes, but hopefully let's say we figure it out. But I think the debate is healthy. If you're passionate enough to ridicule the person on the other side, I think you're too passionate.
Yeah.
Each to their own.
I know. So you skew a bit more to the meat side. I skew a bit more to the plant side. And, I grew up eating vegetarian 2 or 3 days a week, hardly any red meat, and I kind of stick to that diet right now. So mainly fish, eggs, plant-based. That's basically all I cook. In the weekends, I eat whatever, to be honest. But yeah, that's what I do.
Look, and I think a lot of it comes down to, for both plant and meat, it comes down to where it's grown, how it's been sort of raised, if it's cattle, or how it's been harvested, and are they using pesticides? Are the animals sort of free range and grass fed? So there's a lot more choices than just meat or plant.
Yeah,
there's further choices that you have to look into and have to make beyond that.
Definitely.
So we should probably kick off looking at sort of the different plant-based diets there are available, and there's lots.
There's heaps. There's so many. So I guess.
Do you know all the terms?
I don't think I know all the terms, but I know a term or two. Hal. So Hal's also kind of raised in a vegetarian household.
My mom's vegetarian, so I spent 11 years vegetarian up until I was about 16 years old.
And do you attribute that to why you're 9'1"?
No, I think I'd be 10'1" if I'd been eating meat from a younger age.
Are you a meat eater now, Hal? Hey, before you answer that, cocktail frankfurts are not considered meat. I know you eat those at your kids' parties that you go to, but I wouldn't consider a cocktail frankfurt a meat.
I love meat, but I can go days being vegetarian and just not know the difference.
Yeah.
Whatever I feel like.
So you can sort of flick in between. You sort of listen to how your body feels, and if you decide, hey, I feel like a steak, I'll just you'll hook in.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. I'm a bit the same these days. I've gone from heavy meat eating. I've definitely cut back a lot of meat consumption. My body still lets me know.
Would you say you eat meat every day?
Every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the form of my main.
When's the last time you had a non-meat day? Or have you ever had one?
I have a lot of non-meat days, but they include eggs.
Right.
Like a lot of eggs on those days. But I don't eat red meat every day, that's for sure. Definitely eat fish every day. And after a while, my body, it's like I get this urge, get some red meat into you, get some steak into you, whether that's psychological or it's actually my body saying, hey, I need all these nutrients and whatever that's in the meat.
Steak.
Yeah.
You eat fish every day?
Pretty much. Eat tuna or salmon every day.
Okay.
And eggs. And I'm not as heavily reliant on sort of your chickens and your steak and other forms of meat that I used to be. But I'm still getting my protein in and still enjoy a good steak now and then. And
here's a mind-blowing fact. I've never cooked a steak in my life.
What?
Yeah, never ever. I grew up not eating beef, so...
How do you call yourself a powerlifter? You must be shunned in the powerlifting community.
I don't know, I have my protein shakes. So.
You have a live-in chef, though, don't you? That cooks it all for you.
That's the next
I wish.
protein flavour.
My George Foreman grill. But yeah, so let's get into some of these terms.
And Musashi, here at Musashi, we're definitely on the fence. I mean, we've got both whey-based protein products and also plant-based products. Which we might talk about a little bit later. So whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so
we're just going to give you some little facts, maybe.
Yeah.
Bit of bro science.
I don't know if we're going to
real science.
debate the topic today, but maybe explore it and dive into it a little bit. So
plant-based, you got lacto-ovo vegetarians. So they consume dairy and eggs.
Yep.
Pesco-polo vegetarians eat fish, shellfish, and chicken. Yeah, they're not vegetarians. You're eating chicken.
That's kind of like me. I mean, I have red meat hardly ever. It's not part of my regular schedule, but if there's a nice lamb curry around,
you've been known to whip up a nice lamb curry. Pescatarians eat fish and shellfish, and then flexitarians.
Sure,
They're my favourite.
That's me.
Flexitarian, they just decide when they want to be vegetarian.
Flexibility, right? Flexibility, the ability to flex.
And then you got your
every photo, every taken of Dhiren.
Yeah.
With the left arm up.
And then you've got your full-on vegans who anything that comes from an animal.
Yep. No animal products
whatsoever.
Yep.
So no eggs, no honey, nothing.
No.
No butter, no nothing.
And then I guess there's the term plant-based. So, what does plant-based mean? If you're like me, predominantly eating vegetables, but you still eat some meat, does that count as plant-based? I would say you're still plant-based.
I think everyone should be plant-based. They should be including plants into their diet regardless of whether they eat meat or not. Like,
yeah.
it should make up the majority of your diet.
Yeah,
Good
definitely.
quality, fibrous.
And I guess
Starchy.
maybe we can talk about that in a bit as well, but something called the healthy user effect or the healthy user bias.
Yeah.
So it's a very important topic.
So probably the biggest thing vegans, vegetarians struggle with is getting enough protein in their diet. This is always the crux of the debate, where they get their protein from. So what are a few plant sources where people get their protein from? What are the best?
I guess before we answer that question, let's talk about protein, right? So, you can talk about, remember our pyramid of nutrition, which we kind of touched on in some of the old episodes, but your foundation of nutrition needs to be a total calorie balance, right? Especially when it comes to body composition. Above that is your macronutrient breakdown, so your protein, carbs, and fat. Above that's your micronutrients, and then it's things like timing and frequency. So, what is a good protein? A good protein addresses the base of this pyramid, your total calories and your macronutrient levels, right? So there's a few ways to measure or describe a good protein, and some of the most common measures in the scientific world are biological value and protein digestibility, corrected amino acid score, or PDCAS.
Summarize those two easily so listeners can understand what they are. Body's ability to utilize the protein.
So how much
within that source?
How much the protein that you consume is retained into your muscle, and how much is excreted. Also, how much of these amino acid requirements is this protein source supplying? So, there are 20 proteinogenic amino acids. So if you think of protein as like a chapter of a book, think of amino acids like the letters of the alphabet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Different letters can combine to make different words, and that's how there's so many different types of proteins. Your body's made out of protein, so when you eat protein, you break it down into the amino acids, and then you write the story of your body with the letters from your protein.
And this is probably the biggest argument against plant-based protein sources is they do not contain a full essential amino acid profile.
And typically, yes. So there's 20 amino acids, like 20 letters of the alphabet.
Yeah.
11 of those you can actually make yourself, so you don't need to get them through your diet. But 9 of them are considered essential amino acids, which means you need to get these 9 letters of the alphabet from your protein sources. So imagine eating a paragraph without any of these 9 letters of the alphabet in it, right? It's going to be hard. However, most vegetarians and vegans are very aware of this, and this is why, it's quite well known that you need to eat a varied diet. Vegetarians know that beans, legumes, different types of vegetables actually have different sources of protein in them.
But is there one source of plant-based product that contains all 9 essential amino acids?
There's more than one. Even soy, for example, has...
I think quinoa as well.
Quinoa, soy, yeah.
But it's just the levels of protein are lower.
Well, protein is relative. You can eat more vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically less satiating because, protein when it comes in a steak is, accompanied by a lot of saturated fat and things that can fill you up.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at a plant-based diet, although you can't get, all the a very high scoring protein on, biological value or PDCAS, which I just talked about, from typical plant sources, if you eat a variety of plant sources, you're covering all your bases. And, there's absolutely no reason why you can't get all of your amino acid requirements from a well-balanced plant-based diet.
So you need to obviously research and find out and take in a variety of plant-based sources to get all of those essential amino acids, but it can be done.
Yeah, definitely can be done, and people do it all the time.
Sorry to interrupt. Of those plant-based sources, like what are the best ones? So give me sort of 3 to 5 of the best plant-based protein sources that people should be looking at to include in their diet.
Well, typically beans and legumes are, the go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Although beans and legumes tend to be around 50% carbohydrates, they do have a pretty good amino acid mix and, good digestibility. So,
are you looking at like raw beans and legumes? Because a lot of the vegetarian options I see these days and vegan options, they're basically imitating meat with processed versions of like a meat patty, and they're They're a mix of lentils and chickpeas and legumes and all sort of with all the other crap as well, preservatives and everything else. So are you recommending like just raw sauces in with salads or something like that, or?
Not necessarily. I mean, you can cook it and it's not going to, it might denature some of the proteins, but you're still going to get the same quantity of protein. It's the benefits of a raw food diet are a bit different to,
by raw,
what we're talking about.
Unprocessed, I guess.
Oh, unprocessed. I thought you meant like uncooked. But unprocessed typically, there's going to be all these other micronutrients and things like that accompanying it. Typically, the more processed the food is, the less nutrient dense it is.
So legumes, beans, chickpeas, things like that. Yeah. I know from just personal experience at home, those sources of plant-based proteins can cause some digestional upset as well.
Yeah, and that's why you typically cook things like that, to enhance the digestibility.
Right.
Especially when it comes to beans, you really want to cook beans before you eat them a lot of the time. Otherwise, that's when they can cause some digestive disturbances.
Okay. And so that's sort of looking at the amino acids. What about actual protein content? So say you take 100 grams of legumes, beans, and then you take 100 grams of meat. Which one's typically going to have more protein in it?
Well, typically meat will have more protein per calorie.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a more efficient way to get your protein in than vegetables.
So from a caloric impact on your diet, you have to consume more calories to get an even or an equal amount of protein?
You don't have to, but typically, yeah. So, it's hard for vegetarian and plant-based sauces to have a higher percentage of protein.
Yeah. So most plant
compared
sauces,
to lean meats.
Yeah. Most plant sauces that you look at, they do actually have a moderate to high level of carbohydrates in them as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, other micronutrient beneficial and things like that are good, but you are taking in more calories to achieve the same amount of protein that you would from meat.
Yeah, I mean,
so it would be you have to adjust your diet accordingly. Yeah. True,
but you also what you're consuming is more fiber typically as well. So I think we talked about it on episode 1 or 2. Two of the most important things that your body requires is protein and fiber. From a meat-based diet, you're going to get much more efficient protein in. But, how many meats do you know contain a significant amount of fiber? Not many. This is why you need to have plants in your diet.
Yeah, and I think most meat eaters would include some plants in their diet at some point throughout the day as well to get that fiber, whether it be fruits and vegetables or...
Well, the thing is, a lot of people don't. And, there's two types of fiber, insoluble and soluble fiber. By eating, whole food-based diet, which people on a plant-based diet tend to do because, you're eating more plants, right? So typically that naturally causes you to eat less processed food.
Mm. I would say in general, vegetarians and vegans probably lead a healthier lifestyle than your typical meat eater.
Definitely. And this is something which I just talked about at the start. It's called the healthy user effect or the healthy user bias. Now, this is why a lot of conclusions can't be drawn from a lot of the studies that are done. Because, when you're comparing someone in a plant-based diet to somebody on a typical diet, you're comparing generally a much healthier proportion of the population to an unhealthy one. We're talking, people on a plant-based diet are less likely to smoke, less likely to drink as much, more likely to exercise. They're more health conscious. So, being plant-based is one element of this, but if you're comparing it to a typical person who eats a typical diet, they might not be living as much as a healthy lifestyles. And so this healthy user effect is, skews a lot of the science, but
it does. Because what are they including in a lot of this science? Like meat eaters, it's what's accompanying the meat meal as well. Is that meat surrounded by a sugary bun?
Yeah.
Is it drizzled in,
17 beers.
Yes, that's it. Like, so I think, if like for like, you need to compare it like for like with like for like healthy diets for to draw a real conclusion from this.
Yeah, well, I guess that's if you look at higher level studies like epidemiological studies, which look at a subset of the population and see how they respond to different diets. Going below that, there's controlled trials, and that's where you can probably draw more definitive results. literally controlling people's diets, and you can balance out other factors like smoking and exercise and things like that. And then one level below that is, where you go into like the more technical mechanistic studies and show that, this plant has this ability. And, like, for example, trans fats, which are found in some, processed meats and things. Trans fats do this to this part of your body. And we know it's bad because it happens in the lab. We can observe it in a controlled trial, and we can see it in an epidemiological study. But it's very hard to do it throughout all.
It is.
Because there's so many factors in nutrition, there's so many factors in your life that can affect many things.
There is. And look, another thing, we're going to look at meat shortly, so don't worry.
Sorry to go deep into some science boring stuff.
Look, deficiencies are big in the vegan vegetarian world. Blood tests showing deficiencies in vitamin D, zinc, iron, omega fats.
Yeah.
Like unless you have this diet nailed, and you are looking at all of these factors, it could potentially be detrimental to your health.
It could, unless you pay attention to what you're eating, and you do pay good attention to some of these plant-based sources, and eating a varied diet and being conscious of the fact that you might not getting enough B12. It's 2020, and let's not pretend like we're all cavemen. You can get a B12 supplement like that. And every vegan should be on a B12 supplement. It's going to help your energy levels. It's going to help your performance, especially if you're an athlete.
What does B12 do?
B12 is a vitamin, so it does has a lot of functions in your energy systems and a lot of things. Typically, you can buy a form called cyanocobalamin. It's just an easy pill. But a lot of vegans and vegetarian actually inject it as well. It's called hydroxycobalamin. It's a different type of B12, but it all does the same thing. Mm-hmm. And they say even having B12 levels higher than normal could have a performance enhancing effect. So,
speaking of performance and for sports, how does a plant-based athlete do in sports compared to a meat-based athlete? I've seen a lot of athletes convert to veganism or vegetarianism when their career is already established. I'm yet to hear. I'm sure it exists. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm yet to hear of an elite level athlete that has made it, that has been raised as a vegan or vegetarian their whole life.
Michael Jordan.
No, he's not a vegetarian. He only eats pizza, poisoned pizza, apparently. Yeah.
Well,
there's a lot of switching that goes on. They switch for whatever reason it is, but.
Yeah. How many kids do you know that are vegetarians? It's hard to raise a kid, make them eat all their veggies.
True. Most kids are raised eating everything.
Yeah. So how easy would it be for you to make your kids vegetarian right now?
I think it'd be fairly easy.
Really?
They come from a very balanced viewpoint in our household.
That's good. Yeah.
I would say neither of them are the biggest fans of meat. Like they eat it, but they could definitely live without it. But I think they need it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's probably the exception. A lot of kids, struggle to get their veggies in.
But even like some famous Australian athletes like that were in the Game Changers documentary, Morgan Mitchell. Yeah. I was doing a bit of reading on her. I was hoping that she had gone sort of a long extended period of time as a vegan or vegetarian athlete, or vegan athlete. No. Well, she had already established herself in her career. She'd already had top level national performances, making Olympic teams before she switched.
But I think we'll see probably the emergence of a bit more plant-based athletes in the future because, 10 years ago, a very small percentage of the population was plant-based, and it's increasing. Veganism and vegetarianism are one of the most Googled terms in Australia.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the fastest evolving trends. Just by the law of averages, there weren't that many plant-based athletes in the past, so maybe that's why we don't see that many now. But as they, progress, as it becomes more, prevalent in society, maybe we will see more.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Well, we see it with our plant protein powder. It's shot up to be one of our best sellers. So
yeah,
you guys are out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm having it every day. So
okay. Another argument from a muscle building perspective, is the content of leucine, the amino acid leucine, which is one of the 3 branched chain amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
In meat, there's up to 3 times higher concentration of leucine when compared to plant-based protein sources.
Yeah. So
Leucine, super important
it is super important
for
and
muscle growth.
it's actually the only amino acid that can trigger muscle protein synthesis, so it's critical to muscle growth. But, you know, like I said, we live in 2020. You know, if you're an athlete and you have high protein demands and specifically, you know, trying to build muscle, have a plant-based protein shake. You know, you can cover all of your amino acid bases like that. And
With plant-based protein shakes, let's talk about that quickly. Majority on the market are single-source plant protein. What's different about ours?
Yeah, so like
without sounding like an infomercial.
well, exactly.
How much do they cost as well?
What we touched on before, you know, if you're going to only eat one plant-based source, you might not be getting the full complement of amino acids that your body requires, especially the essential amino acids that you have to get from your diet. And, you know, if you're having this one protein source, that's your daily protein source, you might not have sufficient amino acids to perform at the levels you want to perform. So Musashi plant protein, which we put together, is a combination of 3 different types of plant-based protein sources: pea protein, brown rice protein, and hemp protein. But we're actually potentially looking at changing that in the future.
To get it Informed Sport certified.
Exactly. So, you know, hemp is one of those ingredients which it's a bit of a gray area when it comes to banned substance testing. Although we do anecdotally know that many athletes are taking it and have not failed any tests. To get it Informed Sport certified, just to get it to the next level and make sure all athletes are safe to use it, we potentially going to remove hemp.
Yeah, replace it with another plant source. But
Yeah.
we also
We're looking
fortify
at chia seed protein.
Ooh.
Should be good. Yeah.
Also fortify it with added amino acids.
Yep. So added vegan amino acids in our plant protein. So
And also digestive enzymes.
digestive enzymes.
Pretty good formula. Like
Yeah.
as a meat eater and someone that can handle whey protein, I still have our plant protein. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a nice smooth formula. But anyway, that's enough sort of starting
Plugging.
to sound like an infomercial now. Let's talk from an ethical standpoint, because like I said in the beginning, most plant-based athletes and people make this decision because they love animals.
Yeah.
Right? They don't want to harm animals. They believe that we should all coexist, and I think that's awesome. I really do. I think it's, but from an ethical standpoint, moral standpoint, I think it's commendable. But many of those people do not understand the practices in agriculture and how many animals are killed through those practices.
Yeah. I guess you're talking about birds and mice and things like that.
They're still animals. Mice, birds, snakes. I was reading something the other day. And it related to Australia. I wrote a little note on it. There's a guy by Matthew Evans. He's actually written a book. It's on eating meat.
Yeah.
Right. And he takes a look at omnivores and vegans and their impacts that both dietary choices have. He studied the Australian food industry for many, many years. And he found that, this is just one case, over 40,000 ducks are killed annually just to protect the Australian rice production.
Yeah.
So ducks come in, eat the crops. What do? They're killing these ducks. Also, there's over 1 billion mice are poisoned to protect wheat in Western Australia alone.
Oh, wheat bigs.
So these rodents, these animals, these ducks, these birds, they want to eat the crops.
Yeah.
Right? The people that are growing these crops have to protect their crops.
So you're saying to reduce the total sum of suffering, to eat a steak, one cow has to die.
According to this book,
Yeah.
the equivalent amount of animals die in the production of plant-based products through agriculture than they do, like the same amount that we kill for the consumption of meat.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm trying to get to here is grow your own veggie gardens at home.
Well, I guess the other key point behind this is the disconnect between, people and the food that we eat.
And look, this happens with meat. I can't wait to get to meat, because this definitely happens with meat as well. You see it on a burger, you don't think twice where it came from.
Yeah, exactly. But
I think it's an argument vegans and vegetarians use against meat eaters, but they're not actually looking at their industry as well.
Yeah, but I guess, those are traditional farming practices, and, I think it's becoming more prevalent, and, there's new certifications that people are looking for, people were looking for certified organic and that's booming as a trend. Many things that you're going to see are going to be cruelty free, and the certification standards and industry standards are going to come into place because people are now more conscious of this entire picture. And even though these smaller animals and things like that are potentially dying, during agricultural practices, there's still that disconnect of eating the flesh, right? And I've been reading a bit on yoga recently, right? Because I've been getting pretty deep into my yoga. Here we go. But one of the practices is non-violence, right? So they're saying like people that do a lot of yoga or yogis should practice vegetarianism because it's practicing non-violence, right? And there's these ancient Hindu texts where yoga was invented like 5,000 years ago, right? And they say you shouldn't eat too much, you shouldn't eat too little, you shouldn't sleep too much, and you shouldn't sleep too little.
It's so broad.
Yeah.
Like, but just tell me what to do.
Yeah. Well, basically,
it's like this is like a mental mind game.
I know. So if you're going to eat meat, a lot of people, especially, younger kids and things, you mindlessly eating the flesh of an animal, right? Not that I'm a vegetarian. I eat meat. I eat fish, but fish don't have feelings.
You don't become a powerlifting champion without it, but
we know fish don't have feelings, right?
Yeah.
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
And that's probably another thing to discuss. And I debate this at home all the time. I like to wind the wife up. How do we know plants don't have feelings? We definitely know they communicate with each other.
Do we?
Yes.
But
there's proven there's types of plants that if they're under threat, they can send signals to the same species of plant miles and miles away as a warning sign that, hey, we're under threat here.
Yeah,
protect yourselves.
Move?
But
I know, or they can put out a different scent, or they can change themselves chemically. Watch a mushroom grow. Watch a mushroom grow in like a time-lapse camera and tell me that thing's not alive.
But many mushrooms are a topic for another day because
mushrooms are meat, I reckon.
And mushrooms are going to take over the world. But anyway,
one way or another.
There's a mushroom leading the United States at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Told you.
It's
begun.
It's become political. So I don't think we know because a plant doesn't have eyes and a mouth and a nose. Suddenly we just write it off that it's not a species like us, so it's okay to eat.
There was a
who knows?
No,
about plants registering pain.
Yes,
that was interesting.
Yeah, but
of course they do. They're poor things.
But there's many fruits and vegetables that have evolved to be eaten, and part of their life cycle is to be eaten. You think of fruits. They want you to eat their seeds. That's why they taste good. They want you to shit them out somewhere so apple tree grows, at the end of the day. But, like larger animals, cows, sheep, typically the more, the more sentient an animal, the more consciousness it has. I think that's where a lot of the aversion to, cruelty comes in, like when it comes to mice, like, what the mouse, like.
How do we know? Could be the most sophisticated and intelligent creature on the planet.
Like a fly. You're going to compare the life of a fly to the life of a dog?
If I'm a vegan, all lives matter.
I don't think it's all equivalent. A dog is an intelligent, emotional creature.
I know what you're saying. I agree. I'm just being difficult here.
What's a fly?
A fly's a nuisance.
Exactly. So, you can't say all lives are equal, but I think that's where the argument is, skewing it in your favor by eliminating these highly sentient beings, these emotional creatures. We know cows have emotions and things.
Should we cut a 5-second clip, which is just Dhiren saying, we can't say all lives matter.
Probably not right now, but don't know how well that will go down. So on the other side of it, meat.
Yeah.
Right? There's most meat eaters are omnivores. They eat a mix of both meat and plants.
Some people on the carnivore diet.
And the latest trend is the carnivore diet. I think these people are a little bit loopy as well, but each to their own.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd go eating red meat all day long, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
pretty crazy.
there's been some cases of people switching over to
There's been some high-profile athletes trying it out as well.
yeah, carnivore and eliminating sort of skin disorders and digestional,
diseases,
inflammatory diseases. So, like we said, each to their own, whatever works for you.
Mm.
But meat is considered a superior form of protein because of PDCAS, bioavailability,
Yep.
more protein, higher protein content, higher concentration of leucine. But it's also got a bad rap because of sort of saturated fats, links to
And I think
cholesterol, links to cancer, links to impacts on the cardiovascular system,
impacts your gut health. Yeah.
So there's definitely some pros, but there's definitely some cons as well.
As a source of protein, meat is
King.
is king. It's the most efficient source of protein. It's got the best amino acids. It's got the best protein per calorie. When compared to plant-based sources. But if that's all that matters to you, and the other questions that we just talked about then
I definitely, I'm a big proponent of ethically raised, grass-fed meat, and preferably hunted as well in an ethical way.
Can you hunt?
I can't, but it's something I definitely want to get into.
Like, if you catch a fish fishing, it tastes better.
I can fish.
Oh,
I just can't hunt yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think same goes with meat eaters. There's this disconnect of where their meat comes from.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is processed meat, right? Highly processed meat. There's so many people out there that are eating these highly processed sausages, these highly processed burgers, and
deli meats,
salamis, these kind of things. These are loaded with preservatives like sodium nitrate, and it's the only way to keep the bacterial levels low. And these things pretty much have a limited place in your diet, a very limited place.
They do. And look, I don't even like to include that. You have to include them into the meat versus plant argument, but I don't like to include them in because they're not the sources of meat that we recommend to get your protein from. And I think a lot of people that are into health, fitness, sports, performance, they're not relying on deli meats for their source of protein. Well,
are you sure?
Could be surprised. But
I'm sure there's plenty of people that rely on a ham and cheese sandwich. And
we've seen it recommended from
lots of people. Yeah,
lots of people.
So processed meat has a convenience factor that we can't ignore.
Yeah.
But it's listed as a known carcinogen. It's definitely not as carcinogenic as something like tobacco, but it does increase your relative risk. So if health is your forefront, I read a good quote, but I forgot what it was. But it's something like it's something like if you want to be the best athlete, be the best healthy. Be healthy and you'll be a good athlete. Is the summary of this quote.
Oh, wow, that's so revolutionary. Like
it was so poetic.
I wouldn't have. Yeah, I've never even thought of that. But probably the main problem is we can't sustainably. There's too many people on Earth, so we can't all hunt.
Yes,
we can't all source our meat ethically.
Yeah,
and that's why we have all this factory farming and.
I
know Australia and New Zealand are pretty strict when it comes to sort of cattle and all of their regulations and rules and what you can and can't do. We can't feed them grain here in Australia or New Zealand. Meant to be grass-fed.
It's nice.
Yeah, but look, it's tough to feed everyone on the planet. The majority of the planet is a meat eater. It's tough to feed everyone through ethical sources.
I've got some stats on this topic.
Yes.
I love stats.
So,
you got a graph or something for us?
13% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the world comes from transport, right? All the planes, all the cars, all the trains, all the motorbikes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's 13% of greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh,
Yep.
I know the rest of this stat.
18% comes from farming meat.
Yeah.
Greenhouse gas emissions.
How much comes from growing crops and agriculture? Transporting that, harvesting that, all the machinery.
Significantly less, there's no methane production from cows are farting all day,
That's what I thought you were going to say.
So basically cows fart, and in some countries, even like New Zealand, they tax this there's an
So if we don't
environment
eat them, there's going to be even more.
No.
Exactly.
So we have to eat them to keep the population down. Is that what you're saying, Dhiren?
They've got 4 stomachs.
No.
Look,
So methane that they fought is like something like 90 times worse for the environment than carbon dioxide, right?
We've been eating meat since the beginning of time, though.
Have we?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Hindus have been vegetarian for in India.
But
they've been
look at the
vegetarian
way
for a long time.
we're designed. We're designed with canine teeth
Yeah.
that are designed for shredding and tearing meat apart.
Yeah.
There's a direct link when humans started consuming and cooking meat. That's when the human brain evolved. There's direct correlation between those.
But also, we've been designed to be eating rocks. That's why you have an appendix. It's to remove the rocks from your diet. And, now it's a vestigial organ that has no function in your body anymore.
It took me 3 years to wean off rocks. I was addicted at one point.
Like, just because, you've evolutionarily reached this point doesn't mean you need to be on a meat-based diet because, now we are here today and we can add all of the amino acids from plants because we know about it. And we can get all of our amino acids from a plant-based shake. We can get all of our vitamins that we're missing from a plant-based diet from external vitamin sources, omega-3s, vitamin B12, iron, zinc, all of this you can supplement.
Yeah.
So, our brains have evolved.
Our brains have evolved.
Yeah.
Most of us, anyway.
Most of
As
us.
Hal's about to chime in, let's see if
Yeah.
that works across all cases here.
A funny little fun fact I heard about. You mentioned iron. That's the reason why our blood is red from the color iron. If you burn iron in the firework, it burns red.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Apparently, this is a bit of sci-fi. Do you know why aliens have green blood?
Do aliens exist?
No, like I said,
You
sci-fi.
never cut an alien before?
What?
Because they meant instead of iron in their blood, apparently aliens have copper, which is why they have green blood.
Nice.
Which aliens?
Yeah.
All fictional aliens.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. So when they're drawing these aliens, they actually think about
Yeah, there's huge scientific,
Yeah, come on.
Wow, people have got way too much time on their
But
hands.
do you know what's another mind-blowing fact? Aliens are vegetarian.
Well,
Of course they are.
you two feel like aliens
Have
today,
you seen
that's
an
for
alien
sure.
cow? There's no such thing.
Caloric impact of meat-based protein sources.
Wait, one more stat when we're talking about, saving the world and things like that, and the impact on the environment and the impact on, on sustainability. One hamburger, all right?
Who eats hamburgers?
Me.
Hell.
Yep.
How much water do you think this hamburger uses?
3 liters.
Just to make the hamburger, like the whole process.
Yeah, this hamburger
Oh,
to make one hamburger is equivalent to having a shower nonstop for 2 months.
To make one hamburger.
Yeah, think about the life of this cow. How much water has gone through the life of this cow? Watering the grass, processing the meat. This cow is drinking for like years before it gets slaughtered, right?
But then,
Well, it's contributing to making our brain evolve. We need to.
Well, we're out here having 4-minute showers because there's a drought, and you're having 2 months worth of showers
how many
in a hamburger.
hamburgers come from one cow?
No, that's just one hamburger. Because
then you've got
as a percentage of the meat of a cow.
Oh, fine.
We'll post the link up to this in the show
Be
notes.
interesting. Interesting to compare it
Yeah.
to agricultural practices as well that
Yeah.
require a lot of water.
Well, no. They have compared it, and I'll put up some stats. But
That'd be good to see that. I
Yeah.
think people would be interested in seeing that.
meat-based farming is one of the most water-intense practices in the world. It uses, when there's a massive drought, you can't just stop a lot of these practices.
So I think there's a lot that the meat industry needs to do
Yeah.
to make their industry ethical.
Yeah.
So although meat is a preferred source of protein, from an ethical and environmental standpoint, there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, and we talked about the meat industry, and I guess one of the criticisms of the benefits of vegetarian studies was the healthy user effect, right? One of the criticisms of the positive studies that come out of meat is almost all of them come from industry, and that's not a good or a bad thing. Industry-funded science is necessary because who's going to pay for the science on the meat? But there's another stat that industry-funded research is 8 times more likely to produce a result in their favor. If you do some scientific research and it's not in your favor, why would you publish it? You have no obligation to. So, a lot of the information that is out there is skewed towards, that's funded by the meat industry. And, you think the tobacco industry was funding these fake studies back in the day. How much bigger than the tobacco industry are the big meat industry players of the world?
And agricultural industries.
Yeah.
Well, you look at 7/8 of a shopping centre is not meat.
Yeah.
The whole cereal aisle, like they've got a lot to answer for as well, agriculture.
So in America, 60% of all the calories come from four crops.
Yeah.
Right?
And
from corn, wheat, sugarcane, and soy.
And those 4 crops are probably responsible for producing 80% of health-related cases in the United States. Like,
those 4
diabetes, like all these things that those 4 crops are contributing to. It's generally those processed crops that are contributing to the most health problems in society today.
People that eat that don't eat a plant-based diet tend to overconsume highly processed plant sauces.
Yeah.
If you're on a plant-based diet, you're typically eating less processed.
I agree. I would agree with that.
Sauces, yeah.
Yep.
Like, when you get a steak, you're getting some, you're drizzling with sauce. Like, all of this is sugar, there's...
From a satiety perspective, and this is something that my wife's always talking about, she makes her plant-based meals. She gets to the end of the meal, she's not full. Whereas she'll see me eat a piece of steak and a salad on the side.
Yeah.
I'm full, right? I'm a lot heavier. My activity level's probably a bit higher. I need to consume more calories throughout the day, but I am satisfied with a meal with less calories than my wife, who's a vegetarian, eating a plant-based meal. She gets to the end of the meal and I'm still hungry. So there's a satiety as well. They end up over-consuming on carbohydrates and other plant-based sources.
Typically people on a meat-based diet consume more calories than people on a plant-based diet. And
that's pretty broad.
No, but that's one statement that, it's hard to argue with. People we'll post some links up, but I
think it's down to the individual.
People on a meat-based diet are much more likely to be overweight or obese than people on a plant-based diet. And, you could actually put this back to the healthy user effect that I was talking about.
The healthy user effect is everything in this argument.
It is.
But
it's the biggest part of the whole argument, that the standard diet is shit. And if you start paying a little bit of attention to your diet, like most vegetarians and vegans do, you're going to have tremendous amounts of benefits.
Let's compare this. Let's compare a healthy eater in both cases.
A healthy meat eater.
Healthy meat eater versus a healthy vegan or vegetarian.
And that's why it's so hard to compare.
I don't think there is any.
Who's going to pay for those studies? Nobody.
You.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Musashi.
I think we should. Best sources of meat. I think everyone. I mean, there's not many to choose from, but
minimally processed. If you want healthy food, healthy meat, eat pasture raised,
grass fed.
I
love my
free range chicken,
wild caught salmon.
Yeah. I alternate my fish choices. Tuna, salmon, sardines.
Yeah, the whole office smells it.
Yeah. Well, you guys can get your omega-3s through sardines as well if you like. But
I think it is too good to rotate. If you are a meat eater, rotate your sources of meat that you are eating.
Rotate.
Rotisserie
chicken. That's
alternate. I should say.
Alternate, right?
Alternate, okay. Not rotate. Get it from different sources. Yeah. I would limit red meat intake. I think there's been enough evidence to show that we should be limiting it.
Yeah, I mean,
don't have to cut it out.
High quality red meat is very nutrient dense. Like grass-fed meat, New Zealand lamb, all that good stuff.
Elk.
I've never tried elk, but I've heard it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely.
The quality of the meat does make a big difference.
Kangaroo.
Yeah.
Have you tried kangaroo?
Yeah.
I have.
What's the weirdest meat you've eaten?
Crocodile.
Yeah, I've had crocodile.
Yeah, I ended up in the Northern Territory at a restaurant, and I thought, I felt bad.
Tastes like chicken.
Tastes like chicken.
It didn't taste like chicken. It was more like fish. It was more like lobster. That's how I compare it. Lobster or crab. Yeah. What about you, Hal? What's the weirdest meat? What's the weirdest meat you've ever eaten?
Hal's been eating some weird meat.
He eats a lot of meat, I've heard. Let's go.
Probably crocodile. I don't know, pie.
You've eaten crocodile?
Yeah.
Yep.
Freddo's pies.
Up at Kempsey or wherever it is.
Yeah.
You stopped in there, desperate for some food.
Every year on the way to Byron.
No food poisoning. And I heard it's pretty good, that little pie shop.
Fantastic, yeah.
What about you, Dhiren? You would have eaten some weird...
Well, I've eaten rabbit.
Ooh.
Tastes like chicken.
But is that, was that...
You've just lost all your vegan fans instantly.
Once upon a time. I also ate some escargot, some snails.
I ate snails too on a cruise ship once. Disgusting.
Really?
Yep.
I actually also ate it on a cruise ship.
I think that's all they serve.
Yeah.
Everything else is riddled with salmonella. So,
what else? I don't know. I haven't eaten too many exotic creatures, so
what's optimal, Dhiren?
Peacock.
What's optimal?
Optimal
is what works for you.
Optimal is what fits your, the bigger picture of well-being. Your spiritual well-being. Let's say, about how you feel towards non-violence towards animals. How you feel, how eating animals makes you feel. How it aligns with your morals. Because you can be a high-performance athlete on both a plant-based diet or a primarily meat-based diet. And, that ultimately...
Is that proven?
Yeah. There's plenty of plant-based diets. And, one of the stigmas...
Plant-based athletes?
Plenty. One of the stigmas now...
But did they get there on a plant-based diet is the question.
Does it matter?
Well, it does. They've developed all of their... muscularity, all of their performance based on a meat-based diet. They've got to that certain level now where probably their skills are...
But you know what we talk about. There's different sports. There's different things that matter. We're talking about, the three things we always talk about: psychological, technical, and physical. How much of your physical do you want to rely on when it comes to being on a plant-based diet? There are elite athletes on plant-based diets in many different sports. Novak Djokovic is plant-based. Mike Tyson, shredded as ever, vegan.
Do you reckon he's vegan?
10 years, apparently. Yeah.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, so...
I think there's some other substances there that might be assisting Mike Tyson at the moment.
No animals died to produce those substances.
Maybe a few tigers back in the day.
I don't know about that. But, yeah, it's whatever fits into your whole picture of wellness and your ethics, your morals, because, Musashi quote from early in the podcast, there's more than one route to the top of a mountain.
There is, and it's what works best for you and what gives you the best results and what you feel best on both ethically and health wise.
And like we always say, experiment. Keep trying things, and that's really the only way to find out what works for you. One of my friends...
if someone is going to experiment, how long should they give it? Like I think there's more people experimenting back towards vegan and vegetarianism than there is vegans and vegetarians experimenting with meat.
Yeah.
But I've spoken to so many people that are vegans, vegetarians, that might have sort of done it. They've done that for 3 or 4 years. Then they've reintroduced meat and they've said, I feel amazing back on it. But there's also the opposite. So there's a lot of people that are eating meat their whole life go on a vegetarian diet.
Yeah.
And
so what's happening is, with any diet, you're typically, going to be consuming one type of meal, one type of food quite regularly, right? So whenever you change your diet, you're going to be filling nutrient gaps that the other diet may have been lacking, right? So it's actually quite a common thing. I read something about some Instagram influencer that was on a vegan diet, switched to a carnivore diet, and she was like more lean and shredded than ever. And I read something the exact opposite, right? Somebody was on a carnivore diet, switched to a vegan diet, and put on lean mass.
It's probably the honeymoon effect in the beginning, so you have to give it some time, I think.
Yeah, so, whatever nutrient gaps are missing from a diet, and, at the polarities of vegan to carnivore, the more extreme you go, the more likely it is that you'll have nutrient gaps, and the harder it will be to, complete your diet. So, my sweet spot is, if you go from there to there, I'm probably about here, right? Not too much red meat. Most of my protein comes from eggs and Musashi plant protein shakes.
I'm keen to hear the debate on this. If you've got any, we will post up a snippet of this video on Instagram and YouTube and whatnot. Get in the comments. Let us know what you do and why and what's benefited you. We're keen to hear everyone's thoughts. Hal, where do you sit after listening to all this info?
Very similar to Dhiren. I pretty much only have plant protein shakes. I'll have meat.
Just at kids' parties on the weekend, cocktail frankfurts.
Exactly, just little sausage rolls while we're watching the Magician.
The Wiggles.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I think we've given a pretty quick summary, but there's plenty of research out there. Look into it for yourself.
Yeah. And like I said, the research can probably be a bit overwhelming, a bit too confusing. I think the important thing is to find out how your diet aligns with your beliefs and your practices, and just to be conscious of where your food comes from is quite an important thing too. One stat that I didn't drop yet, which is my favorite stat, is they surveyed people in America, and something like 16 million people think that chocolate milk comes from brown cows.
I saw that.
Chocolate milk comes from brown cows.
Yeah.
Where does it come? Where does strawberry milk come from then?
You tell me, flamingos.
Those are the same people who think that coronavirus came from drinking Corona, which is why
Oh
the
my
company
God.
suffered millions of dollars
Yeah.
worth of loss in the last year.
So, that's how far removed people are from the food system and the food that they consume. So,
You still got some of Australia's leading nutritionists recommending flavoured milk after workouts. Disgusting.
Well, actually, flavored milk is not a bad thing after your workout. It's
Mate.
got protein, carbs.
I think there is plenty of better options than flavoured milk post-workout.
Are you talking Musashi protein shake?
Oh, it's like you're reading my mind. All right. I think we've explored this topic enough. If you do have any further questions, flick through an email to us at podcast@musashi.com.
Yeah.
Or just hit us up on Instagram or Facebook.
It's probably a topic that we'll definitely revisit in the future.
We'll revisit, and I think we should get some meat eaters in and some vegans in to give their perspective. I know it's easy for us to sit here, we're all meat eaters, but I'd like to get a vegan and vegetarian's perspective because they'll bring different element to the argument and personal experiences, and I'd like to give both sides an opportunity to talk.
Definitely. And, we'll dive into some other parts of this podcast in a bit more detail, like amino acids. And, if you have any questions, just send them through. I'm sure there's plenty.
Beautiful. Listener questions. Have we got any, Hal?
We do have a couple. First from James Webb.
James
says-
Webb.
No relation?
No relation,
No
but
relation.
probably somewhere along the line.
Potentially.
If he's jacked and good looking, he's probably related. No, I'm kidding.
Can't tell you that. James says, how soon after high intensity training should I be eating? I'm aware of the anabolic window, but I struggle eating within an hour after intense cardio.
What happens with your digestive system while you're doing intense workouts, Dhiren?
Yeah, so...
Slows down?
Yeah, all your blood's gone to your muscles and things like that. So a lot of people find it very hard to eat after training.
Mm-hmm. Anabolic window. Bullshit or real?
It's real, but it's probably not as short as you think it is.
It's
a
not
lot
30
of
to 45 minutes.
30 to 45 minutes,
Mate,
20 minutes.
I've had mates in the gym. Seriously, you get off a piece of equipment. 2 seconds later, they've got a shake in their hand, like, I've got to get it down as quick as possible.
The latest
Don't need to be that quick.
latest consensus is about 2 hours. So if you get something in 2 hours, hopefully you're hungry by then.
But within that 2 hours, it needs to be a protein source that is rapidly digested or faster digesting.
So not a
preferably.
Yeah.
Preferably.
And if you're doing high intensity activity, typically, you're going to be quite glycolytic. So you might want to have some carbs as well. So, protein and carb source, something like Musashi bulk protein. We've been plugging our protein shakes a lot.
Stop.
Yeah.
but keep going.
Yeah.
I within 2 hours would be my answer as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
I would generally have a shake, something that digests pretty quickly, and then follow that up not long after with a meal, actual food-based meal.
Yeah, I've been doing quite a few sprint training sessions lately, and
You're looking faster.
I'm faster.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm like super fast right now.
What are we talking? 100 meters. Give us a number.
Do you
want to race?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get beaten backwards.
I was quite the sprinter back in the day.
Oh yeah.
These legs aren't made for just crawling.
Yeah, well, I don't know if when they recorded 100-meter times on a sundial, if that's still applicable today.
So you've been sprinting heaps.
Been sprinting, and after
high intensity.
After sprints, I feel like I can't eat anything.
Yeah.
So I've just been having a protein shake.
I'm like
Actually, I've been having a couple of beers after a couple of sprint sessions, but
not recommended.
not recommended.
I'm like that after leg day or back day or something like that. A heavy, intense session. I just don't feel like eating straight away.
Yeah.
I think that's the benefits of having a shake. It's pretty easy to get down, but
You just want some liquid, and sometimes you just grab the first thing in sight. But a protein shake, one of the benefits is convenience, and you can just have it straight after training.
do you know what I have straight after training now?
What?
I have whey protein, EAAs,
Yep.
glutamine, a little bit of creatine, and some greens. That's
pretty
my
good.
latest post workout.
That's an all-star shake, I would say.
All-star shake. Get on it.
I also have creatine straight after training. Timing isn't super important for creatine, but some of the evidence suggests that post-training is actually more beneficial than pre-training.
Yeah, I have
It
half
takes a while.
pre, half post.
Yeah, it takes a while for your levels to get up to where you need them. But usually I just have 1 scoop of creatine inside a bulk or a plant shake, and yeah, that's me.
I think we well and truly answered that question. Any other questions?
Ooh, about time, yes.
Yeah.
Another one, Maddie Langsworth says, how many calories does walking burn compared to running if it's the same distance?
So I read somewhere that running burns about 30% more calories than walking. But, there's also different energy systems and other things to consider. Like, if you're running, you potentially, you're going to experience more significant muscle breakdown than walking. This is why a lot of bodybuilders do walking for cardio, because, you're not panting and using your aerobic respiration system.
For the same distance, did you say?
Yes.
So obviously running the same distance as walking, you're going to get through the run a lot quicker. So I'd say from a calorie burning perspective, while you're walking, it's going to be a longer walk, longer period of time to get across the same distance. I think more of the fuel that you're using would be more from fat.
In walking.
Walking.
Yeah.
But I think by running, you're probably going to eventually burn more calories throughout the day. But not everyone's a runner. I'm not a runner. If I run, I'm a sprinter. I don't like it. I don't like the impact it has on my joints. I think there's solutions for everyone, but obviously if you're looking at fat loss as your main goal, I think running's going to burn more calories at the end of the day and produce a better result.
And maybe fat loss isn't the goal. Maybe, just cardiovascular fitness is the goal. And
mix of both.
Yeah.
Some extended walking mixed in with some HIIT training.
Yeah.
Some sprints and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think we touched on it in the fat loss episode quite a bit on the differences between the types. But yeah, you'll burn a bit more running than walking.
Any other questions, or is that it?
That's it for listener questions.
What is going on in the world of sport? It's all kicking off again. I'm starting to get excited.
Yes.
So everything's
Sport's
falling
back.
back up.
The NRL is back. I put up a post last night that Dhiren quickly jumped on my Instagram page and was bashing me about it. The fake crowd noise in the NRL games when it's broadcast, I think is absolutely ridiculous. You've seen the footage, you can see there's no one in the crowd, and yet you hear all this fake crowd noise.
I love it.
Why?
I like it so much.
It's not real. There's no one in the crowd. Don't put a noise there.
Just before the lockdown happened, I don't know if you saw any of those games, but it was like watching a training session. It just didn't have the energy to it, It was just like, okay, like the crowd just brings this element of excitement that, obviously one day we're going to get real crowds back. But, when's the last time you saw a good TV sitcom?
This is what I put up on my post.
Exactly.
I likened it to the canned laughter that they used to put on the back of 1990s comedy sitcoms on TV. It's so bad. Ha ha ha! And then it just stops.
I don't mind that.
Wait,
tells you when to laugh.
The best.
I think I'll decide when I want to laugh.
No.
I don't need a fake crowd to tell me when to get excited about.
Laughter is contagious. Emotion is contagious. You hear a crowd, you feel excited, right?
Maybe if you're a sheep.
Comedies nowadays, it's psychological. Comedies nowadays aren't funny because there's no canned laughter. Like look at the Fresh Prince and Friends and things like that. The laughter in the crowd was important.
There are plenty of good comedies these days.
Yeah, without.
Oh, Wiggles don't count now.
He's moved on from the Wiggles. He's on to
Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig, yeah.
And the big purple dinosaur.
Teletubbies he watches. I think it's weird. I think there's no one in the crowd. Don't put a crowd. Sterlo said it best. He remained on the fence when he said this, but he basically said he likes the idea of hearing the physicality of the game. So he wants to hear the crunching tackles. He wants to hear the banter between players. He wants to hear how much they're breathing, and I think the UFC has done it right as well you can hear the interaction between the fighters. You can hear them breathing. Which one's more exhausted than the other. You can hear each strike down to its impact, so which strike is connecting better than another strike.
I guess for the purists, it is better. But, sports is not just about the sport. Sometimes it's about the unscripted drama, the narrative, right? That's why The Last Dance, Repping Rodman today, why it was so good. It was the narrative, the story behind it.
You even a Bulls supporter?
I'm a Raptors supporter, but,
That's bull.
Yeah. What else is going on in sport, Hal?
Well, immediately talking about the NRL, as soon as the news sparked up, we have another controversy. So within 54 hours of the restart to the season, Sharks Bronson Xerri has tested positive for 4 banned substances.
Yeah. Have you seen
a cocktail, they called it.
Have you seen the before and after? He put on a bit of size.
Well, looking at the cocktail he was on, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Young guys making decisions that probably are beyond their years, and they don't understand the full impact of their decisions that they're making.
So, he was one of the hottest prospects. 19, 20. He's going to get a 4-year ban.
Gone.
Career's over.
I think once you've got that reputation as well, and the stigma's there against you, it's very hard to find a spot in another team. Other players have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know they were doing that stringent testing in the NRL.
Yeah, Asada.
They are?
Yeah, definitely.
There you go.
There's been quite a few scandals over the years. So
when are these guys going to learn though? Like, they're on big money, young guys making poor decisions, I get, but this is their whole career they're putting on the line by just wanting to gain a tiny, like how much, obviously there's natural athletes have flooded the game of NRL, or the game of rugby league for many, many years. So the highest performing players can still perform without performance enhancing drugs. That's been proven.
Yeah.
So why are guys still doing it?
The stakes are high. The stakes are
high.
The stakes are $1 million contract one day.
Do you reckon like someone like Darren Lockyer ever took performance enhancing drugs?
No, I don't think so. But
he needs to take something for his raspy voice, but
yeah.
But it's not performance. Like the guys that make it don't need it.
Yeah.
And if you need it to get to that level, you shouldn't be playing at that level.
But all I'm saying is the stakes are high. If you're a 19-year-old and you're seeing these big contracts dangled in front of, people your age, and you want to take it to the next level, temptation is there. And, clearly.
Have you got a quote about temptation? I feel like you do.
Nah.
Okay, damn it.
The theme of his Saturday night.
No, it's pretty ordinary, and I hope all the other players are learning from this.
Yeah.
Next.
We mentioned him earlier. So, vegan Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson, you were right.
Is set to name a comeback this week.
No longer Iron Mike Tyson.
Iron deficient Mike Tyson.
If you've seen him, he's probably more iron than ever. He's saying he's in the best shape of his life, and he credits this to his plant-based diet.
Yeah, exhibition fights. I think there's a reason why he's doing exhibition fights. There's no risk of testing.
Yeah,
I think he's on some stuff. Definitely, there's no 53-year-old man that can look like that and bounce back that quickly.
Yeah, I'll look like that when I'm 53.
Probably, but you wouldn't have stopped training for 10 years. You would have continued to train.
He actually got quite out of shape.
I know, yeah.
He was quite fat.
Look, I love Mike Tyson. I don't want to see him come back. I just like the aura and the thought of young Mike Tyson. I don't want him to come back, even if it is an exhibition, and see some young guy or just anyone put it on him. I just let that legend live.
Just like, is he the same killer that he was? He was like an out of control. His diet was Evander Holyfield's ears. Now it's plant-based, right?
And I think he has evolved so much as a human, and he would be the first to admit all the shit that he's done when he was younger was bad.
Yeah.
And he's evolved so much as a human. How much is boxing going to reintroduce some of those thoughts back into his psyche? And
yeah,
like you said, some of the best guys in combat are the wildest.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them so good at combat. You look at John Jones as a perfect example. He can't stay out of trouble with the law. He's wild, man. He's also the best martial artist ever.
I think actually this is a good topic I wanted to touch on when we're talking about plant-based. There's a stigma that eating plant-based is not masculine. It's vegans are weak,
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the case, Look at Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet.
I don't think it's the case. I know that stigma definitely does exist, but yeah,
Look at Nate Diaz. You're a gangster, but West Coast gangster. That's Nate Diaz, probably the baddest dude.
Eats fish.
eats fish, yeah. But predominantly plant-based, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
people think you have to
That
eat the flesh of a living animal to be like a masculine dude. But
That was so ridiculous in the Game Changers, how they included Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor in that argument versus plant versus meat eater.
yeah.
Like, Nate eats meat, for starters. He eats fish. And Conor came back to win the second fight anyway. Like, it was the most ridiculous argument. They're basically saying because he's a former vegetarian, that's why he beat this other guy in a fight.
Yeah.
So silly. What else is happening in sport?
So as all sports return, we're hearing that the NBA will be back soon enough, but we have a definitive date for Premier League, which is English Premier League will return on June 17th.
Yeah.
Cool. I know our boy Matty Ryan, who we caught up with recently at a social distance here in Sydney, had to fly back to get back into training. So that's why.
It's going to be juicy. I mean, the Premier League when the Premier League stopped, it was just the hottest, well, except for Liverpool at the top. It was just the hottest competition in a while.
It's a foregone conclusion.
Well,
Liverpool's going to win.
Liverpool at the top is going to win, but, they're going to have the asterisk the size of the sun next to them this season. As, they won, but under these conditions. So,
what other sports are coming back? Everything. AFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
NBA, I mentioned earlier.
NBA.
Going to be playing in Orlando.
yeah, potential 16 games straight into playoff season. So we'll see how that plays out.
What about our local listeners? I was just looking at something this morning. Gyms.
What about
Northern Territory? All clubs now open. Western Australia, some clubs open 18th of May. South Australia, 1st of June. Queensland, 12th of June. New South Wales, TBA. Why?
Shame.
too many cases?
Too many
Probably.
clubs.
Be nice to put a date on it.
Would
Put
be.
people out of their misery.
Yeah. I, for one,
Victoria has more cases and they even have
at
a
least
date.
you have weights at home. I haven't been lifting weights this whole time.
I know.
Okay.
You look like
I'm
a vegan.
Still there.
No.
No, I've been doing kettlebell workouts, bodyweight workouts, sprinting.
You'll go back stronger than ever.
I've been loving switching it up. Been getting deep into yoga.
What's your opinion? Should the gyms in New South Wales open and Victoria? Really, they're probably the only two states that aren't open yet. Should they open?
I'm no epidemiologist. I can't talk about that.
Dhiren, on the fence, Dhiren, they call him. What about you, Hal? What do you reckon?
Open now, please.
Open now, please. I think everyone would agree
I think
with
they
you.
should. I think if all this other stuff is open, gym should be open though.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yep.
You want people to be healthy. Exercise boosts your immunity.
As long as it's done right,
Yeah.
I think open up.
I mean, it's easier to keep a social distance in a gym than it is in a bar anyway.
100%. If you want to open up bars just to please people and make them happy,
That's the economy as well, though.
Maybe we should set up some gyms in Woolies and Coles and Bunnings because there seems to be hordes of people in those places that have no regard. They're coughing all over the fruit and vegetables. There's no glove. There's nothing.
Yeah.
So if all that's happening, like I was in the fruit and veggie.
Wait, does this mean we're going to have to wear gloves at the gym now?
Never. I've taken so long to build these calluses.
I've
up.
got baby hands now. I had like the hands of Thor before this.
Well, how are your hands, Hal? You build up calluses
I
yet?
built up a few because I was doing some guerrilla workouts outside.
Gorilla workouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guerrilla, like G-U-E,
Oh, yeah.
not guerrilla.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. What else is happening in sports, Hal?
That's all I've got.
That's all you got. There's plenty happening, but yeah.
Miyamoto Musashi quote for the day.
Ooh. Don't we have a famous athlete quote today?
Yeah, of course we do.
Oh, okay.
I've never got one. You got last week, didn't you?
No, a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, I like this one. Kill them with success and bury them with a smile.
Oh.
Kill them with success, bury them with a smile. So it's a happy athlete.
Oh, I've definitely heard this before.
He's in all the Optus ads.
Ooh. Shows you how much I watch the Optus ads. Come on, what do we got? Come on, Dhiren.
Tim Cahill. Oh, okay.
Not Tim Cahill.
Usain Bolt.
Usain Bolt, yes.
There we go.
Well,
Very nice.
that's very appropriate for him.
Yeah.
I love the image of I think the last Olympics of him and someone else who were racing with so far ahead of everyone else. By the end, they were kind of just running next to like one of the first heats, just laughing with each other.
He's one of a kind.
He is. Everyone loves him. What's the Musashi quote of the week?
The Musashi quote is, a man cannot understand.
Hang on. Lower your voice a bit more.
A man cannot understand the art he is studying if he only looks for the end result without taking the time to delve deeply into the reasoning of the study. You know? So
I think that's applicable to today.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people that make a decision on which side of the fence they sit on, whether it's plant or meat, without truly looking into each side of it. And like we said, all the ethical and environmental and all the other factors that are included, not just how much protein does this one have and this one have. So many other things go into it.
Yeah. And, you know, how do you delve deep into a diet? Do you read about it or do you do it? You know,
I'm a doer.
Yeah.
I prefer to try it on myself and see how my body reacts to it. You can read all you want, but like you can read something that is so skewed one way, it can convince you and you do it and it doesn't work for you.
You know,
I think you got to do a bit of both.
Everybody has this confirmation bias. You're going to look for evidence that supports your pre-existing, preconceived ideas, right? You're not going to, it's just, everybody has these ideas, right? You're not going to go into anything neutrally and seek out information like that. So, you know, the best way is to delve deep, to dive into it. You know, how I learned about intermittent fasting is I did intermittent fasting for many weeks. You know, how the best way to learn about going plant-based is to go plant-based.
Go plant-based.
I don't know about carnivore. Haven't tried it yet. I don't think I will, but
I think everyone should approach this topic today with an open mind.
Yeah.
Try both. Definitely do not, like we're all in this for the same reason. We all want to be healthy, fit, active. Don't slam someone else that's healthy, fit, active just because they eat plants as a protein source and you eat meat. That's just stupid. We're all on this journey together. Let's figure it out together. Let's give each other the benefits, let's have a good discussion, not an angry, heated discussion.
yeah.
Let's make each other aware of all the pros and cons of both.
Oh, that's sweet.
It is sweet. I'm turning soft when I get older. As I get older,
Yeah.
I think that's enough vegan jokes. We're gonna lose all of our vegan listeners. We love vegans. Try our plant protein. It is awesome. It's renowned as being the best on the market. Anything else you guys want to add, Hal?
My mum's vegan.
Okay, awesome.
Fully vegan.
Fully vegan.
Sorry?
Fully vegan.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
How old's your mum? 27, 28?
Yeah, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, you know, Ross has almond milk in his coffees, so he's one step closer to going plant-based. But
Far out.
yeah, just
Thanks for ruining my reputation.
I'm a jiu-jitsu.
Well, Dhiren just made a coffee with soy in it, so I like to lift heavy things. Anyway, I think that'll wrap it up for the week. This has been fun. This is an awesome topic.
Yeah, make sure you understand the fundamentals of nutrition. You know, that still applies. You
Yep.
know, your calorie balance, your macros always apply. If you understand the basic fundamentals, that's when you can start exploring different diets and having more plants, having more meat, whatever you want to do.
Let's close on that.
Lovely.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. And thanks for listening, everyone. Just a reminder to everyone, we are actually on Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
Anchor FM
Anchor, everywhere.
and YouTube.
So if you don't want to watch our ugly heads on YouTube, listen to the audio version.
Yep.
And we are out.
Musashi out.